Very interesting question you asked, because if I look, we set up a company 4 years ago, and when we set it up, the raison d'etre was to survive, for 6 months and a year. Now 4 years later, we're sitting down and we're formulating a strategy, because we now have cash flow to make choices, to say, well, we can think now 2 years in advance in terms of people, markets we want to move into, taking a look at the marketplace and say, in 2 years' time, what is going to be the big thing in our areas? What sort of things should we be doing? What should we be considering now, which will have an impact down there? So it is this, if you want to call it, wrap it and call it emerging strategy, it is that.
No, it's not.
Isn't it?
I don't think that is.
Or is that deliberate?
Strategy.
Or is that not strategy?
I think you're underselling yourself here.
Right.
I'd be very surprised if you'd gone in to see a customer in the first month of operation and they were to ask you, what is your raison d'etre, or what is the purpose of your organisation, you wouldn't have said to survive for 3 months. I mean, that is not what you would have said.
Indeed.
So I think right from the very beginning, yes, of course, your aim, absolute requirement was to survive, but I don't think that was ever your raison d'etre. I think you always had something else, that what is going to be special about us is the reason we exist, what we're going to offer, all those kind of things. We're actually more than that. I don't think it was ever, we're just going to do something to survive for 3 months.
Now, you may or may not have had a plan to take over the world.
No, well, no. I missed that one. I think I was abroad.
That was your EDP student. But you might. If suddenly things take off and you get an opportunity, you may become I don't even know what your business is, you may become the next Google. They didn't set out to take over the world, did they? But they had a strategy of they have, apart from China, right. Obviously.
Well, no,
Lenovo, the PC manufacturer, laptop manufacturers, they were started off by a couple of Chinese ex-military guys with $20,000 in 1980 something. And they've now taken over IBM's, and it's a massive multi-billion organisation. So maybe, I don't know if they thought of that when they first started out, or Google, or Microsoft,
No, but let's go back to your question of whether the fact that you're changing, whether you're changing your strategy now means it's an emergent strategy. That doesn't kind of quite fit, I think. The fact that you don't have the same strategy now as when you started however long ago doesn't mean it's just emergent. Okay? It just means that at different stages you're making different decisions. So if we go back to where earlier part of the conversation, you set a course, okay, and you might diverge from that a little bit, adapt to what happens, those other things emerge, but nevertheless you are following that course. And then when you've kind of got reasonably far towards Edinburgh or towards your objective, whatever, then you set another course. Okay, so you do another, let's plan, let's deliberate and decide our next way forward, our next course, and then you more or less follow that, and then different things emerge. But the fact that you've changed strategy doesn't mean that you've just kind of
made it up
and things have emerged.
So
you're deliberately setting new courses.
Right.
We tend to agree that this big sort of planned versus emergent debate is false.
Yeah,
right.
Very much so.
Far too much been placed on it. There's always got to be an element of planning. I mean, I don't think any company sort of just sticks a finger up and licks it and see what's happening. Logical incrementalism is essentially what you
use that word, incrementalism. Isn't a lot of strategy that incremental, learn from experience and then.
Well, of course, but personally, I think that
steps.
it can get extremely banal, this debate.
Yes.
Because of course,
who cares?
Who cares? Okay. Of course, no strategy. You set out, I'm going to do this. It never works exactly like that. So, in a sense, all strategy is.
And it's never
is
finished.
Emergent, and it's never finished. Well, as you say, though, Elliot, who cares? So, where does it have application? Where is it a kind of insightful idea? Where does it actually illuminate things for you? Well, maybe in very high change, very turbulent environments. That's where you really need to think about this idea of how do I organise myself? How do I organise my Okay, let's do how do I organise my company? So that we're as flexible as possible in these high change, high turbulence environments. Okay, and there is some thinking around that in terms of how do you actually reconfigure your organisation so you're more flexible and more adaptable. That's kind of quite a useful insight to come out of it, I think. and where do you compete, all of those kind of things that come out of it. How do you manage the day-to-day operations of organisations? Yahoo is an example where they've kind of consciously adopted that kind of approach. But I think those are fairly few and far between, actually.